right. I'm just also going to see if you guys have got any questions at all. We've got a couple of more students joined in. It is 100% scholarship. Well, yes, 100%. So when you look at 100% scholarship criteria, most of them require for you to write an essay. Most of them require for you to put down why you should be the one getting the 100% scholarship. And in fact, the essays, the personal statements play the most important role. I'll introduce myself first to begin. I'm Praneet. I'm the Associate Director at upGrad. I have studied from the University of Pennsylvania, which is number 8 university in the world. I studied from the Graduate School of Education that technically is number 1 in the US for education, even way above the Harvard School of Education, the Harvard GSC. And so I got in on a 100% scholarship, and I did write my SOP. And so I'm just going to share with you a couple of insights that I extrapolated from what really works for your SOP. I'm just going to show you my presentation right now. Well, there you go. So first things first, I'm sure a lot of students are here. Some of them are applying for undergraduate studies. Some of them are applying for graduate studies. The most important thing is these are a few things that you need to keep in mind when you apply. So these are not just limited. So what you see on my screen is not just limited to the SOP, but it's limited to what you really need to demonstrate for yourself if you're applying to a university abroad. Of course, the core part is the most important part. The core part is something that all of us actually have to meet. So for example, let me pick up someone randomly. So if there's Kanishka Rangkaushal or there is Harsh Joshi, Harsh, Kanishka, and myself have to apply to Stanford, right? Now, when we apply to Stanford, the core part has to be fulfilled. For example, if Stanford wants a GRE score of 338 or 337, all of us have to get there to even apply or make an application to Stanford. If they want a 3.4 GPA on 4, that's about 80%. All of us have to get 80% to even apply for Stanford. But how Kanishka or Kapil or myself, how we write the SOP is the deciding factor. So the SOP is actually based on the auxiliary part. So the point I'm trying to make for you right now is, irrespective if you have tens of thousands of students to compete with across the world, but you write a very persuasive, strong, prolific SOP, it can actually help you pass through the admission criteria. So the auxiliary part has to, so whatever you see in the auxiliary part is what goes into your SOP. The work experience, internships, online courses, the extracurricular activities, the volunteering or social work, awards, entrepreneurship, or anything additional that you've done. It could be attending a global conference. It could be traveling across the world on exchange. So many different things that you might have done and someone else hasn't done. But the most important thing is storytelling. The most important thing is that there's an art to describe what is it that you did? What is it that it gave you in return? What was the key takeaway? And what were some of the numbers or statistics associated with it? Everybody who's just joined, welcome to the webinar. I'm Praneet, the Associate Director at upGrad. I myself am a student of UPenn. I went to UPenn's GSC Graduate School of Education. I got 100% scholarship based on my SOP and my achievements. So I'm here to kind of try to take you through how do you write a persuasive, strong, prolific SOP? Arushi, can we quickly do a mic check? And can you just confirm to me that you can hear me okay?
Oh, yeah.
Perfect. So now, can I know by raise of hands? So if you look at the bottommost part of the topmost part of your Zoom platform or your Zoom app, you will see an option to raise your hand. Can I quickly know how many of you here are students that are applying to a master's in UK, US, Canada, Australia, master's degree? So Harsh is applying, Tejesh, Manoj, Tanurima, everybody. Right, so 12 out of 32 are applying for masters. Got it. And how many of you are applying for a bachelor's degree? Bachelor's meaning an undergraduate degree. Got it. And how many of you are applying for a doctorate degree or a graduate certificate or a diploma? Okay, so essentially, even if you're applying for an undergrad degree or a graduate degree, what's the most important is these are the qualities that a grad school or a graduate school would essentially look for. This could mean Harvard or Stanford or Oxford or Cambridge or UCLA, UC Berkeley, Duke. You can look at University of Sydney, University of Melbourne. The fact that that you've demonstrated being a good leader, the fact that you've got certain uniqueness in you, the fact that you've got a demonstrable track record of success, that everything you touched, everything you ever participated in, that was successful. Make sure that you take a note of these points or take a screenshot. So when I say being a leader, that means you were the one taking initiative. I think a lot of people across the world, a lot of students, a lot of learners across the world are in that state where they can where they can carry something forward, where they can do a discourse, where they can maintain or curate something that's growing already, but there are very few folks who take the initiative, who rise to the occasion, who step up to responsibility, who take the accountability for certain things, who stand bold in the face of adversity and are willing to lead from the front lines or the four lines. That is what schools actually hear the most about. And when I say turnkey solutions, that means from 0 to 1. So everything that you could possibly do to start something that was never started. Let's say someone, so why I got in, so I don't know if you understand the gravity, but I got 100% scholarship into an Ivy League school. That's number 8 in the world, number 2 in the United States. And that's essentially because I had a startup and I built one startup, took it to 15 countries in the world. I was 21 years of age then. The point I'm trying to make is that's what schools value the most. Not necessarily a startup, but if you open an NGO and you did something about that, if you took the responsibility when nobody in your family could earn, let's say for example, but you started working, you managed your studies, you scored a 95 or a 3.8 GPA, but you were also the sole breadwinner in the house. So 100 things where you took responsibility. Your uniqueness is when you took a road less taken, when you took an unconventional path. And stats basically means putting numbers to everything, right? Here's what the statement of purpose actually looks like. An SOP, like I said, is a bridge between everything you've done in the past, the course, and where you want to be. So universities actually care less about the fact that you write a lot about the course, you write a lot about flattery statements about the university. They don't really care a lot about that. They care about who you've been all this while. Where have you come from? What was your current aspiration? What's been your motivation? What is it that really drives you every day? What is your intrinsic driver? Universities care a lot about what keeps you going, what birthed your interest in a specific subject, and what is the career you're going to be looking at? What is the life you're going to be looking at? And how is the university a conducive, lucrative environment or ecosystem or ground or infrastructure to get you past, to catapult you? I'm sure you know what a catapult is, to catapult you into the future you want to build for yourself. So an SOP should highlight your academic strengths, your background. You can take a screenshot of this, your personal goals, your research interests, your skills, vision of a career. So the most important thing being academic strengths, as in everything that is not shown by empirical information, which is your data, which means your documents. Background is everything. Like, let's say you were a research fellow under someone, you attended a lot of conferences, you've worked on a lot of projects or internship, which gave you a hands-on experience of cybersecurity or AI or machine learning or whichever course you're picking it. Why is it that you were in Kindle, your interest was birthed, you were inspired to do something more than anyone else? Personal goals, what is it that beyond academia you're looking at? Is that becoming a scientist? Is that becoming a machine learning specialist? Is that you want to build $100 billion enterprise that can impact 1 billion lives in the world? Is it some problem in the world, some cause in the world that you specifically want to address? What is that mad obsession that you have to fix the world that nobody else has? What is the vision that came to you and came to nobody else? But it's almost like, what is your passion? But then what are the personal values infused in it? And what have your life experiences been that you were triggered to pursue that path, right? Your research interest, that what is it that in that field you really want to discover? For example, if I'm a biology student, what is that part of gene theory that I really want to dig deeper into and find out? If I'm a physicist, what is that part about string theory or dark matter that I want to know more of? If I'm an astrophysicist, what is the study of the universe, or what is the study of astronomy that I want to know more about, that's still not been figurable if there's life outside Earth. All of that put together is your research interests, skills, vision of a career, right? I'm going to show you something, just going to jump in. So that's actually what your SOP should look like. You can take a quick screenshot of this. So essentially, introduction is 4%, but introduction is something that pulls the reader. Introduction is something that they will always remember. Introduction is something that they want to know that why should we keep reading, and what is, you build that enthusiasm, you build that motivation or momentum in someone that here is why you should be reading my SOP. Then your work experience is 55% of what you should be talking about. Work experience is mostly essentially talking about the different sporadic highlights, the top highlights of your journey that actually made a difference and that actually propelled you into that direction. What propelled you in this field where you're trying to do a course is the most important part. Academics is 27%, of which laboratories you went to, what did you try, what further fortified or bolstered your interest. Your extracurricular activities is 7%. Extracurricular activities sometimes mean what did you do to develop that interest further. For example, I feel that I'm a machine learning specialist. Did I take extra robotics class and try to embed machine learning? Did I take extra Python classes and try to embed machine learning? Did I take more machine learning tools classes? Did I take deep learning lectures? Did I take NLP, natural language processing lectures? What did I do really to become a machine learning specialist? So universities care not just about that one day. Let me pick up someone random. Let's say one day, Tejaswini wakes up and says, I want to do a machine learning course. From that day to 6 months, when you actually made the application to Stanford, what did you do to hone, to develop, to further fortify your interest is what's most important. Going back to the importance of statement of purpose. Statement of purpose, like I said, is the single most important document that clearly helps you state your purpose. It helps committees who actually read your SOP assess your knowledge, experience, motivation, your intellectual maturity, and your readiness to enter into a course. You talk about everything starting. How is it that you will be able to cope up with student life? Why is it that you more than anyone else will be able to solve challenges? You more than anyone else will stay strong in the face of adversity. You compared to everyone else will be more self-aware on campus. You from everyone will be more accountable for the kind of journey you have. You out of everyone will be more vocal, will be more enterprising, will be more of a leader than anyone else. So one of the things that SOP is really important for is that's the first piece I write, that I read as an academic committee member, that you write. So your communication skills, to be able to demonstrate that's the easiest part. To be able to show that you're very persuasive, that you can move the reader because you wrote something that compelling. And organization skills. So how did you organize content? Where did you start from? What is the chronological order? Is it a reverse chronological order, or is it a simple, straightforward chronological order? Sometimes, here's what the essentials of SOP writing are. Number one is you articulate your academic why. That why is it that you're applying? Sometimes, so you can take a screenshot of this, but some of the most important questions that you need to ask is, why do you want to pursue this degree? What led to your interest in the degree? What did you do to further nourish, cultivate, nurture that interest in the degree? What are your research interests? What are some of the other things that you want to find out about the subject that's moving you, compelling you to pursue this? What are the skills and expertise that you feel like that you will acquire? And finally, what do you want to do after completing the program? Sometimes what also helps is they want you to do so much of research that they actually want you to know which professors, which faculty member at the university you want to even be taught by. So that's the kind of research that they expect you to do, that which professor and which field has he worked in? What are some of the things that he's already been working with? What are some of the things that you want to pick from him? What are some of the things that you want to be supervised by him on, that nobody in this world can actually supervise you more than that person in your university? That's why I want to do it. Sometimes also that there's a certain laboratory that I can already see myself. So I'm just giving you an example of an exact line that you can write up, that I can already see myself working at the Dr. Smith Laboratory of Biological Sciences, or CAT School, or the CATS Laboratory of Genetic Science and Research. I mean, I'm just giving you an example of one of the laboratories at a university that I can already foresee myself and envision myself spending hours and hours of my day doing research in that laboratory under the supervision of Dr. Smith, and trying to find out what led to X or Y or Z. That's the kind of picture you want to paint in the SOP. You know, by and large, an SOP has to be a living document, a living document. So what are some of the essentials of SOP writing? Your past experiences, there's respective tenures, how long. For example, when I say share vivid, concrete details of your experiences, for example, I taught someone in grade 6, geography, mathematics, science. So instead of saying, I taught a few kids from NGO, geography, science, mathematics, and here's what really happened. They all scored well. It was a great experience for me, XYZ. That's not important. The point is, let's rephrase it this way. You need to quantify your stories. I taught, so in 2008, right after I graduated college, or while my college was still on, I taught 62 students of grade 9 and 10 algebra, calculus, and geometry. In 6 weeks of me teaching them, assessing them, trying to build and fortify, strengthen their concepts, they scored on an average 30% more every quarter in their exams. That's the kind of picture you want to paint, right? And always write something in active voice, never a passive voice. If you're hearing me, here's what I want. So a passive voice is, supposedly I went on from door to door to collect funds or to collect a survey. And I'm writing a poll on how many folks use private healthcare in my neighborhood was conducted by me for my year end, blah, blah, blah. This meant I was interviewing my neighbors in their homes. A spreadsheet was used to keep track, the due date was met, and I was ready. Worse is active was that for my year end project, I went from door to door to collect the exact numbers and statistics about healthcare use in my neighborhood. I interviewed at least 100 neighbors. Here's what I found out. I submitted my research in time, got an A, but what that experience taught me was you need to keep the customer or the consumer at the center of research to know more insights about what they really need to prove my hypothesis, because we ultimately start assuming way too much, but we need exact data, which is then that habit has helped me be more precise, be more meticulous in my research. That's the kind of thing that they really want to hear from you. What was the exact active voice activity that you did? And I mean, activity that you did in active voice, and what did you learn? What did you exactly get? So I hope you got my point. Here's where we were. So what are some of the things that you want to gain through the course that nobody else will give you, no other university will give you? Sometimes the best way to go about this is to let them know that what is it that, so you research to that extent every single day about the kind of accomplishments there. So in the US, in UK, in Canada, in Australia, across the world, in fact, there are schools. So schools of computing, school of law, school of business. So every single day, if you go to their LinkedIn page, there's some accomplishment, there's some laboratory, there's some infrastructural development that's being made in their university that nobody else has across the US or Canada. Keep a tab of that, mention that I found out that recently this has been done, and that will really help me, let's say, transpire my ideas across the university, communicate them, and build a community of students that are interested in my area of research and strengthen it further. So keep a tab on it, but research it to an extent that you know about every single development that can actually help you do your research better, stronger, because universities really want to know why us and no one else. Sometimes what they also want is that you share concrete details of your experiences. That so what I was saying is sometimes they don't just only care that you're interested in this and XYZ, but what have you done in this? Is there an article or a research document that you wrote? Did you present it in any of the world conferences, or has it been printed, or has it been out in any of the journal? Any project on topic that interested you, but you also worked on it, and if you presented a paper of research anywhere. Talk about your goals. What are your future goals? What are your career goals? What characteristics of the school department course can actually help you? Like I said, what positive aspects you bring to the school department program? Now, can I ask a bunch of folks to raise your hands? How many of you want to get into an Ivy League university? Harvard, Penn, Cornell, Columbia, Dartmouth, Brown, Princeton? Got it. Do you really know, or do you want to know what do they care the most about? Sometimes they don't really care at all about what they will give you. Of course, they're an Ivy League. They know, and they're very uh, cognizant of what they can give you. But sometimes the thing that they care the most about is what will you do for them? What is it that you can bring to them that nobody else can? What is it that you come with or you bring to the classroom that nobody else can? For example, if you're an entrepreneur and you're entering into an MBA, then they know that the kind of experience that you have as a unicorn startup at the age of 25 or 26, or 100 million USD worth startup that you have that nobody has. For example, if you built a social enterprise or you were working at McKinsey as a consultant across the world, what is that extra edge that you bring that nobody else has? That's what they want to know about. So always put down a few points that keep that make that that put you aside than anyone else in that university. The crux of your SOP: what do you want to study? Why do you want to study it? How are your work interests and programs? So what is your background in the course connected? How's it? How will the program be instrumental in achieving your objectives? What do you expect from the program? That's what I already told you about, that how will you contribute the most to that course? Does the college follow a particular curriculum that appeals to you that nobody else does? Does the college excel in a particular field of work? And like I said, if there's any professors that you know of that are doing excellent and that you keep following their research on LinkedIn or on the university's website. And especially, I think some of the things is that your personal why, what really pushed you, what makes you unique? Like I've been saying, what qualities of your personality do you wish to showcase? Like, have you been a problem solver all your life? Have you been really invested in solving complex issues? Have you been very involved in ensuring that every time you were troubled, every time you had some adversity, you fixed it? Every time at your workplace or every time in your university you were crippled mentally or stressed about something, but you figured that out, you found a solution, and you ultimately ended up succeeding. So sometimes you can also talk about your values, like demonstrating integrity at work. How have you been how have you been demonstrating excellence at work, that no matter where they put you, no matter how many times you changed your job, no matter how many times you grew in the company from manager to senior manager to AD to director to VP to CEO, how did you expand your horizons? How did you stretch your capacity? How did you stretch your capabilities? What is it that keeps you going personally? Sometimes entrepreneurs really succeed on not just their obsession over a business idea, but how they infuse their values in that idea. For example, sometimes as diversity and inclusion mean a lot to you, right? That you're very careful and you've always fought about you fought back against any phase of your life in which you felt that this wasn't an inclusive place, or what we were building was not a cohesive, inclusive group. Research the student community of the college. See, so a lot of universities across the world have certain college clubs or student clubs: entrepreneur club, physicists club, astronomical club, different things that you can take a part of. Let's say the gaming club, where you don't play games, you design games. I mean, um, you've got the machine learning or AI or robotics club. So which one is it that you're more keen on and why? And sometimes it's good to start your SOP with an anecdotal approach, a story from your past that can actually help them. So just remember that one of the most important thing is admission committees receive thousands of SOPs every season. Did you know? Here's a fun fact: Stanford receives about 49,000 applications. 49,000 applications every season. You know how many students they pick up? 2,000. And that includes domestic students. So that's about 4% of everything they do. Just 4% of everybody they receive an application of 4%. So out of 100, 4 applications. That's the kind of competition you have. And believe me, what I'm trying to tell you is all of these 49,000 students meet their criteria, which is why they can apply. Right. So that's the point I'm trying to make. So if you don't manage to capture your reader's attention within the first few lines, and you're not able to build that momentum or levitate them into the enthusiastic mode to read your SOP, the reader may not even pay attention to the rest of your essay with the same amount of energy or willingness or keenness. So, and this can adversely impact your chances of getting an admit. So the point I'm trying to make is starting has to be very strong. These are some of the things at a glance that you can take a screenshot of: academics, demographic, diversity factors, work experience. How did you demonstrate being a leader? Like I said, and I've been emphasizing, sometimes being a leader is not limited to having a leadership position. You can be an associate and yet have such a strong influence on the entire enterprise just because you take initiative, just because you take accountability, just because you've done certain things that nobody else did, just because you had the audacity to question the status quo, to challenge the status quo. That sometimes is all that a leader is expected to do when you lead when you role model. Like I said, quantify your stories. Here are certain do's and don'ts. Use simple, clear, concise language. Do not use fancy or technical jargon. Do not get someone else to write your SOP. Of course, write it yourself. The best way to write an SOP, in fact, is to put down all the points on one single sheet and then pick up or maintain a flow. Sometimes when you have too many gaps, when you have too many breaks in the SOP, you lose kind of the flow and you lose the direction. And sometimes for someone to read it, it kind of starts and ends abruptly in bits and pieces. So what I'm saying is build a coherent framework in a flow of how events happen. How did you keep getting more and more propelled in that direction of applying for this course and developing interest? Since faculty are the ones reviewing your application, sometimes even if you want to use a very discipline specific terminology, tone and style in SOP, it's absolutely fine, unless you're not using too much of it. For example, the specifics of oncology can be mentioned if that's your research area, but that's limited to your domain. When you talk about your experiences, then avoid using technical terminology to explain them what you've been doing, rather make it as simple, because sometimes out of an SOP, they're more than the kind of absolute wins that you've got. They're trying to find out your behavior around tasks, your behavior around pursuits, your behavior around challenges. Do you actually make it all the way through against all odds? That's what they want to figure out. And what did you do at each step of your life to maintain that interest, to not drop? How consistent are you? Sometimes all they want to know is, against all odds, did you still keep fighting or did you lose out? You may eventually still get there, but the fact is, what have you been doing all these 7 years to make all the way through? That's on the font thing. 12.50 Roman, 1-inch margin on all sides, 1.5 line spacing. Some of the don'ts are that don't copy anything, don't give wrong information, don't use the same SOP for all universities. If you've written a university that's so general that you can use it for everywhere, that's a disaster already. And do not generalize things. Keep it very specific to a university. upGrad, of course, like one of you asked me, upGrad does in fact, write or help, not write technically, but assist you in SOP? Can we use ChatGPT for SOPs? Well, imagine I'm saying there are 50,000 students applying to Harvard or Stanford. Even if there are 10,000 students like yourself, you're technically writing the same SOP. So you're out by default. As discussed in the don'ts of writing an SOP, should not use the same content. Um, these are simple things. You can't write the same thing for everywhere, every university. So this is the most important thing. Every university has a different research methodology. If you look at the curriculum of data analytics, Master of Science, and across 5 different universities, you will see that all 5 of them have a thesis portion or a non-thesis degree, but some of them will give you 9 credits for it. Some of them will give you 3 credits. Some of them will have internships. Some of them will have capstone. Some of them will have a lot of electives. Some of them will not. Some of them will be an applied data and analytics degree. Someone will be an absolute data analytics degree. Some of them will be a business school and tech school combined degree. Some of them will be arts, business, and tech. All of these are very different. You can't normally write a simple one size fits all approach for that. I already mentioned you this. This is another thing you can take a note of, that that's the breakdown of what you should be doing. And that's essentially how you should write the SOP. It should start with introduction, background, why this course, going to career goals, why this university, and conclusion. I can give you, so while you are here, I'm just going to answer a few questions. Can we use ChatGPT? I've answered this. A lot of them are doing it, so you don't want to be there. Could you please write an SOP for me? Sure. Why not? I'm a college student. I don't have work experience. That's fine. Sometimes it's not about work experience. It's about how you honed, how you cultivated, how you nurtured your interest in a field. How did you still keep going? What did you still keep doing to make sure that your interest was being developed? At every stage, have you advanced your course? At every stage, have you gone a step further, or are you at the same place for all these 6 years, but you're trying? That in fact shows them your behavioral aspect around your academic or professional pursuits. But remember, if you're a college student and you're applying, might as well talk about every internship that you've taken. If you haven't taken, keep taking internships, they matter a lot. Is social work necessary to apply for masters? Not necessarily. When I talk about community service, or when I talk about community experience, when I talk about social work, it's not that it's an imperative, indispensable, or inevitable experience through. It's just that it gives me a lot about your selflessness. It's about your ability to put the cause of others, the cause of the university, the mission of the university beyond yourself. It's the fact that you're willing to give up on your personal vested interests just because you want to achieve the higher good, right? That's what social work sometimes symbolizes or metaphorically means. That are you willing to serve the community? And the US pays a lot of attention to that. Preeti says, I don't know what's what. Preeti, you'll have to ask me a complete question. Can we get any help from upGrad to write down the essay? 100%, 100%. I'll request my colleague Arushi to put down our website link, and you can go and you can find the program of your choice. Once you find the program of your choice, some counselor will call you and let them know that here's what you need from an SOP. We've also got a boosters course where we train you. There's a proper academic writing course that we have. I'll request my colleagues to put down the website link. I think I can do that as well. Oh, so there you go. So if you select on Booster is a course that you can pick up if you want to learn more about academic writing. That's the best way to go about it. Is 100% scholarship possible? 100%. I think scholarships can actually help you move your course further. And if you write an SOP, so most of the scholarships will ask you to write an essay, and that's what SOP essentially is. Meghna, that's a good question that you have. Look, my answer to that is, at the end of the day, the format may be similar. At the end of the day, the way you write things is always different. At the end of the day, your pursuits, your personal story is very different. If your SOP isn't highlighting your personal story, then it just isn't worth it. And the starting is the biggest impression maker. Here's what I'm going to do. Let me take you through some of the starting ways to start an SOP. So this is someone who wants to study gene theory for masters and is applying to King's College London. As a child born and raised in Delhi, India, I never questioned the idea of my present life being a reflection of my actions of past lifetimes. The ideology of karma, XYZ. So he describes back home what is the ideology like, that it emphasizes that everything in our lives, from the amount of wealth to everything that we're suffering through, is a consequence of our prior actions. However, I began to question all spirituality when it shows that there's gene theory, there's an inherited trait that we all have, and necessarily not everything is because of my karmic debt, but more because I have certain genes. So look at how he started it, right? And then he keeps going, and what did he do to further hone or develop that interest? He started doing plant signal transduction. He assumed responsibility of a certain project with his senior, reinforcing his conviction that he masters a variety of techniques. So he's using technical terms, but remember that he's trying to tell you that I kept developing my interest further. Then he says that there's a certain guidance of Dr. Wolverton that he took that currently is teaching at that university. He's talking about other research or other presentation of papers that he's made at the research symposium that he's been doing. That he talks about some of the other things that he doing that he was doing. The fact that how did he hone his interest in eukaryotic cellular physiology? Talks about protein structure regulation. So he's saying every event in my life thereafter, the highlights, I kept doing something further. I kept documenting things. I kept moving one step forward. I reaffirmed my interest in research. And then here's what I did. Then he says that uh, in order to design his own experiments, um, he feels that this course that he's trying to do or trying to apply for will focus on signal transduction. That's the next best topic for his research. And that's what kept him going into cancer research. Why this university? He says he's well acquainted with Western blot transduction XYZ. Look, I find many of the faculty members at Ohio University doing fascinating research. That's the university he's applying for. I am quite interested in Dr. Lorraine Santi research on role of GT passes. So the point is, he's already pointed out that there's one faculty member in your university whose work I've been following and I'm very impressed by it. And then he wants to say the Santi's labs focus on signaling mechanisms. So he's saying there's a laboratory that I want to be in, and here's a specific thing that I want to master. And he wants to focus on identifying novel anti-cancer drugs, XYZ. The point is that here's how he ends this. So the conclusion is very important. To make the committee member that was reading, you have to leave a strong impression. So among the other pile of applicants who applied, you need to make sure that they take away the best from your SOP. Make sure that you've got a strong, inspiring conclusion that makes the readers trust and believe in your deep conviction on the subject. Your best bet would be to summarize your entire SOP, emphasizing the core points that you've been meaning to highlight, that you actually want to intentionally have them take away from your SOP. Telling them how are you going to conquer your goals and, to get that acknowledged by them. So it says, I believe that the education and opportunities that I will get as a research or teaching assistant will prepare me to achieve my career goals. So in the US and UK, you can not just study, but also become a GA or RA. And RA is a research assistant, a TA is a teaching assistant, a GA is a graduate assistant. So he's also applied for that. And he says, my decision to apply comes from my goal of becoming an independent investigator in the field of translational cancer research. So I hope that you got the point. Here's what I'm going to also share with you. Just give me 1 second. Just give me one quick second. I'm going to share something with you that I really want you to take a note of. So I'm just going to give you a couple of examples as to how you can start your SOP. Okay. Also, don't ever write gonna, wanna, kinda, y'all. That's not the best way to go about things. You have to write things very formally. I'm going to share something with you. So if there is someone going into 1 second, I hope you can see my screen. Arushi, can you confirm if you can see my screen? Perfect. If you're applying to computer science, you can talk about this thing that, how is it that the world is moving at a fast? I mean, you can always go through it or take a picture, or I can send you this URL. But the point is that you can talk about the changing context of the world. You can talk about from school till now, how has technology changed? You can talk about how has computer science or AI changed the way you live or you do your daily chores? How has it transformed every single little action of your life? How has it augmented it? If you were applying for an SOP for computer programming, but for PhD, you talk about other things that, why is it that you're really keen or intrigued to pursue the same thing as a PhD holder? This is more of a research SOP. Then if you were applying for an embedded systems and engineering or semiconductor course, you talk about, certain experiences with machines, certain experiences with computing, where a robot, Sophia, that you met, how did it act, how did it behave, and what hope does it give you for the future? What vision do you have that nobody else has about the evolution in technology, and what's the kind of world that you're going to be building in? If you were writing a business management SOP, you talk about entrepreneurship. You talk about the kind of things you've learned as if you come from a business family. You talk about what are some of the problems you can solve if you had the capability or capacity of being an entrepreneur. You think about how much power does Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos or anyone simple as someone who built Lenskart or who built BharatPay or who built Shadi.com or XYZ, just the fact that how is it that make life easier? How is it that, sorry, excuse, sorry. Yeah, so how is it that startups in this day and age are trying to, enhance human life? How is it that you feel that being at the center of a business can redefine what it means to be a human being in this day and age? How is the fact that AI, cloud computing, IoT, machine learning that are available now in less than 100 USD, making it the best time in the history that the world has ever seen to run a startup, to infuse technology, to use technology to solve more and more complex issues? Then something if you want to do about, excuse me, please. Sorry, I'm suffering through a cold and just wanted to sneeze. So when you talk about applying for a psychology course, you talk about, so sometimes I have seen a lot of students at Penn wanted to do something because the reason emerged out of some, an experience of their own life. For example, some of them were going through depression or had been, victim of trauma. And so they wanted to work in that field. A lot of students who study social science or social work sometimes do it out of a particular necessity that their inner spirit has, that they want to solve this because nobody solved it for them. They want to do more of this because they got less of it. They want to teach because they never had a great mentor. They want to be a business coach because they never had one, but they realize the importance of it. So sometimes an SOP is also important that way, that someone says that when I was 12, my sister suffered a traumatic car accident that left her with post-trauma, depression, severe anxiety, and nobody cared, but I did. I saw her grow. I saw her develop. I saw her develop that strength. And then she says, I wanted to question, dissect, and analyze, hopefully understand the mysterious phenomena that had dominated my life for so long. And so she picked up psychology and personal experience on my sister's PTSD. Found that I was particularly interested in clinical psychology. So there's a way to start things. That's what I wanted to let you guys know, that sometimes that's the most important part, that how do you start this, how do you end this, and how do you pick up some of the best highlights of your experience and put them down into a form of a necessary compulsive conclusion around things. Sometimes I think if a lot of you have gaps in your higher ed, be transparent, talk about these gaps. So like I said, anything that numbers can't show, anything that your transcripts or your figures can't show, address them empirically in your SOP, but don't try to blame your gap years, blame your problems, blame your issues on someone. Rather, tell the university folks through your SOP what caused the problem. How did you fight that issue? How did you get back on your feet? And what did you learn from that experience? Sometimes that's the most important part than anything else that you can possibly let them know, right? Is there any question for this? I can, of course, share my PowerPoint presentation. How many pages for SOP would seem to be adequate? So, Jibin, an SOP limit is always defined by the university. Some of them may ask you specific questions that you need to answer under a specific limit. Some of them give you an essay type SOP and say that, here's what you need to do, and here's how we want you to let's say, write it in 2,500 words, 3,500 words. These are the things that we want you to cover. Can you give some information by Masters in Fine Arts? Kajal, so a lot of it depends. So are you telling me that I give you information on how do you write the right SOP for that? Depends on the course. If you've chosen design, if you've chosen music, if you've chosen some specific thing, what has been your motivation, what has been your drive? What happens if a student doesn't have a good profile? Can she still get admitted? 100%. I think SOPs are one of your biggest tools that you can wield to get through, especially when you don't have a good profile for yourself. That's the best way, because it gives you the opportunity to mention what is so unique about you that nobody has. For example, if you're a graduate, if you're a dropout of bachelor's from a lot of years, but you were a CEO, you built $1 million enterprise, you worked so hard that experientially you've learned so much more about life, so much more about business than someone who's a business grad. So how did that work out for you? But remember, it's not just about sharing experiences, it's about sharing what did that yield. What was the outcome? Was the outcome impressive? Was the outcome remarkable? Was the outcome out of the world? What was the outcome extraordinary that nobody else can get? If yes, that's the way to go about it. But it's just that you can't sulk about life, that I dropped out and here's what happened, and then I also did not do this, and then I moved on, and then I moved on, and I'm keeping at it, and I'm still moving from one interest to other, but here's what my interest is right now. No, they want lesser choices in life, but how did you follow up? What did you build out of them, right? How do you look? At the end of the day, the possibility or the probability, the permutation of you getting a similar answer from ChatGPT is still around. And plus, the point is you still have to tell ChatGPT about your story. ChatGPT can frame a few things, but look, ChatGPT can articulate when you give the application certain bits and pieces about your life. But how can you expect ChatGPT to know your life? ChatGPT is not divine, right? It doesn't know about your life. You need to tell it what is it that you want to be written? What is it that you want for ChatGPT to articulate in a better way? What are some of the ways of gaining more skills? Well, Crispin, that's an important question. I love that. You can do free courses they call MOOCs. massive open online courses. Go do it on upgrad.com, do some upskilling certificates, go do it on edX, do it on Coursera. There are 100 things that you can do. You can attend a lot of conferences, you can attend a lot of, let's say, summits, entrepreneurial boot camps. Be on the lookout, keep watching LinkedIn, keep knowing which events are happening in your city. There are several websites now that help you keep a track of the events that are happening in your city, across the city. Don't miss any short-term course abroad if you can afford it, to go and do a short management boot camp or stuff like that. So don't necessarily miss it. How to write a research paper. So ideally, you should find a topic, write the synopsis for it. Make sure you read a lot of sources which you can cite. Go to your faculty, find a supervisor that can supervise your research, and then form your own hypothesis, and then survey in different parts of the community which you're researching on, or on the subject that you're researching on, and then try to formalize that research with data points and survey outcomes, and see if this is something that you found out, and then defend your research. But I think the most important part is, at a starting level, you may want to write a joint research document with your professor, or with a college senior, about something that you are interested in, and which sources did you consider, and what did you ultimately find out, right? How to upgrade our profile. Um, well, here's something that I could tell you. Just take a picture of this. These are something that you can keep doing. So this is something that you could easily do more of, like build your portfolio if you're an architect, build your portfolio if you're a graphic designer, build your portfolio if you're a 3D designer, do a lot of internships, work experience. Just build. The first step is building a good profile for yourself on LinkedIn. That's the foremost step. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put down my email address on the chat box. Feel free to write me an email. Arushi, my colleague, will send you all the recording with sample SOPs that you can maybe, sort of look at and think about. And we wish you all the best. You can always contact upGrad, sign up for some of our courses. We've put down the link on our chat box. Here's the interesting concept about upGrad. upGrad actually lets you go into some of the top 100 universities across the world, from UMass to Yeshiva to Clark, the University of Western Australia, Macquarie, all of these universities. And you can be a working professional, you can be a student of school, graduate, stay in India for some time. You don't have to quit your job or quit your lifestyle all of a sudden and then move abroad. You can carry on for a semester or two, do your initial coursework online in India, without spending a lot of money, and then finally move in the nearest campus intake and do one semester lesser of coursework. So the point I'm trying to make is, when you move abroad, either it is that you can move in the Jan intake or September intake. So what ultimately happens is, universities ask you to apply 9 or 10 months prior. So here's what I'm saying. What upGrad Abroad does is, you still go in September, but from now until September, you already finish one semester of coursework. And instead of spending 30, 40 lakhs of tuition fee and living cost, you barely spend 3 lakhs, finally move on campus, do a little bit of portion of what's remaining, and then move into the job industry. You still get the same length of post-study work visa. For example, if you had to go to the United States, or if you had to go to Canada, go to Australia, a normal cost of a degree would be 55, 60 lakhs, sometimes even 70 lakhs, 80 lakhs if you go to the US. With us, those degree costs are reduced to less than half, because you spend a lot of semesters in India on bachelors. You can do up to 4 semesters in India, 4 abroad. Similarly, in masters, you can do up to 2 semesters in India and 2 abroad, or 1 semester in India and 3 abroad, or 2 abroad, depending on which country. And so that's a very interesting model to start right now without wasting time, without wasting money, save time, save costs, and still get the same amount of post-study work visa. In all of our courses, we help you with SOP, with IELTS, with everything else. In fact, we've got so many options in Finland, which is in Europe, and UK, where you don't actually need IELTS to move, and application for these Finnish or British schools. So there are 100 things that you can do. You can always visit our website and know more about it. We start our Indian courses at Triple IT Bangalore, or our business courses with IMT Ghaziabad. And both of them will give you 6 months to 10 months of a diploma. And then this diploma is counted as 1 semester when you move abroad through upGrad. I hope you take out some time to know about our website, upgradabroad.com. We've sent over 5,000 students abroad. You can also schedule a call with them, understand more about the concept. I'd love to hear more from you. Put down my email in the chat box. I wish you guys all the best. Yes, Devyani, my colleague Arushi will send you the slide deck. It's very comprehensive, and you will be able to get more out of it. I wish you all the best. Thanks, everybody. Goodbye.